The grand meeting room of the Galactic Council was filled with alien delegates from across the galaxy, their figures adorned in shimmering uniforms, their voices echoing through the vast chamber. On the massive holographic screens before them, the most recent intelligence reports were displayed. However, despite all the alien races represented in the room, their focus was on one thing: humanity. They laughed, scoffing at the idea that humans could play any significant role in the grand scheme of the galaxy. The Council's leader, a tall, silver-skinned alien with piercing green eyes, tapped his elongated fingers against the table, casting a dismissive glance toward the human ambassador. Humans, primitive, emotional, and far too weak to ever achieve anything of importance, he said, his voice cold and mocking. His words were met with nods and murmurs of agreement from the other alien leaders around the table. They had seen it all before. The human race, with its history of war, conflict, and primitive technologies, had never been a real threat or even worthy of attention. The aliens had long since dismissed humanity as insignificant. But just as the laughter began to die down, a voice interrupted. The doors to the council room opened with a loud hiss, and in strode a tall human, clad in a dark military uniform. His presence was commanding, his face serious, but his eyes held a spark of determination. Captain Jason Cole, a seasoned military leader, had arrived. He was not here to argue or beg for recognition. He was here to prove a point. Without a word, Captain Cole activated a hologram in the center of the room, drawing the attention of every alien present. The image displayed was of a planet, far beyond the edge of the known galaxy, located in a region known only as the Dead Zone. The planet itself was a hostile volcanic world, surrounded by a swirling storm of ionized gas, capable of tearing apart anything that entered its atmosphere. In fact, no ship or life form had ever survived its dangerous environment. "This," Captain Cole said, his voice steady and unwavering, "is the planet Zoran 6. It holds a rare resource, one that could change the balance of power in this galaxy. It's the key to unimaginable energy. No other species has even dared attempt to retrieve it, and no one believes it's possible. But we, humans, are willing to try." The council members exchanged confused glances. The room was filled with skepticism. The leader of the council snorted, his expression filled with amusement. "You expect us to believe that your species can survive on a planet that has obliterated every other expedition sent there? You think you can accomplish something no one else has? Ridiculous." But Captain Cole remained unfazed. He looked directly at the leader, and then, with a flick of his hand, he switched the hologram to a new display. This time, it showed a team of human soldiers, all equipped with advanced technology, cloaking devices, laser weapons, AI drones, and even a few alien allies who had joined the mission out of respect for humanity's resolve. Their faces were determined, and their gear was state-of-the-art. "We believe we can do it. We have the will. We have the technology. And we have something no other species does: the determination to succeed, no matter the cost." Captain Cole's voice echoed through the room, each word heavy with purpose. "And we are the first to volunteer for this mission. Are you willing to take that bet?" The council fell silent. No one spoke for a long moment. The members were too stunned to even react. The audacity of the humans to take on such a mission in the face of certain failure was almost beyond comprehension. Yet, despite the doubts, there was something undeniably compelling about the human spirit, a quality the other species had never understood. Was it possible? Could humanity actually achieve the impossible? The council members exchanged looks, unsure whether they should dismiss it as a joke or acknowledge that, perhaps, humans could surprise them. "Very well," the leader of the council said finally, his voice cold but laced with an unspoken challenge. "Go ahead. If you believe you can succeed where all others have failed, then prove it. But know this: you will not be given another chance. This is your one shot. And if you fail, there will be no mercy." Captain Cole gave a respectful nod, and turned to leave the room. "We'll prove you wrong," he said under his breath, his confidence unwavering. The scene transitioned to the human ship, the Vanguard, a state-of-the-art warship designed for the most perilous missions. The crew worked quickly, preparing for the mission of a lifetime. The ship was equipped with the latest in cloaking technology, which would allow it to slip past enemy sensors undetected. Eye-controlled drones were stationed at key points aboard the ship, ready to assist the team in any way possible. They were also armed with cutting-edge weaponry, plasma rifles, energy shields, and advanced armor designed to withstand the harshest environments. Captain Cole stood on the command deck, observing his crew as they moved with precision. Every soldier, scientist, and engineer had been handpicked for this mission. The team consisted of humans and alien allies, each contributing their unique skills and knowledge. The stakes were high, and the pressure was immense. Failure was not an option. Every moment counted, and there was no room for mistakes. The countdown to departure began, and as the last preparations were made, the tension in the air grew palpable. The crew was focused, but there was an undercurrent of anxiety. Everyone knew what was at stake. They were not just on a mission for a resource. They were on a mission to prove that humanity could achieve the impossible, to show that they could survive where no one else could. The Vanguard's engines roared to life, and the ship slowly began to ascend. The vast expanse of space stretched out before them, a black void interrupted only by distant stars. As the ship approached the dead zone, the sensors began to pick up irregular readings. Violent storms, electromagnetic pulses, and ionized gases that would tear apart anything that ventured too far into the atmosphere. Yet Captain Cole remained calm, his eyes fixed on the mission ahead. This was humanity's chance to prove itself. The impossible was within reach. As the ship entered the hostile planet's atmosphere, the turbulence was overwhelming. The ship shook violently as it battled the planet's gravitational pull and the fierce electrical storms. Captain Cole gripped the armrest of his chair, his jaw set in determination. Outside the viewport, the planet loomed, a hostile, fiery world filled with swirling clouds of ash and lava. It looked like a place where life could never exist, let alone a human expedition. But there was no turning back now. They had come this far. And as they descended deeper into the planet's atmosphere, the real challenge was just beginning. The crew braced for impact, knowing they would either make history or become another forgotten casualty of the dead zone. The tension was so thick, it was almost suffocating. But in that moment, everyone aboard the Vanguard shared one singular thought. Could they really do it? The ship continued its descent, its systems pushing against the brutal conditions. The planet's surface was in sight. The crew had only one shot to land, retrieve the resource, and escape. No one knew if they would make it back, but they had to try. Because sometimes the impossible is only impossible until someone dares to prove it otherwise. The atmosphere aboard the Vanguard was tense as the ship neared the edge of the dead zone, a vast region known for its unpredictable, hostile conditions. With every passing second, the pressure inside the ship seemed to build. The crew, normally calm and collected, exchanged nervous glances, the weight of the mission settling in. Their destination, Zoran 6, was no ordinary planet. It was a death world, a place where survival was all but impossible, and yet here they were, humanity's last hope to retrieve a rare resource that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. As the Vanguard descended into the planet's atmosphere, turbulence shook the ship violently. The planet's magnetic field was chaotic, distorting the ship's sensors and throwing off its systems. Captain Cole remained calm, guiding the ship with steady hands. Outside the viewport, the planet's surface loomed, a barren landscape of swirling sandstorms, jagged rock formations, and dark clouds that constantly shifted in color, as though the planet itself was alive and watching them. The landing was rough. The ship jolted and groaned under the stress, but with Captain Cole's experience, they managed to land on the surface. The team quickly secured their gear and prepared to disembark, knowing that every moment they spent on this planet brought them closer to danger. The hatch of the ship opened, and the team stepped out into the harsh, unfamiliar world. Immediately, they were greeted by the violent gusts of a sandstorm. The winds howled, carrying with them particles of toxic dust that stung their skin and made it hard to breathe. The air felt thick and suffocating, every breath a struggle. Despite the chaos, the team moved quickly, securing their surroundings with laser focus. They knew that any misstep could be their last. The storm raged around them, but it wasn't the only threat. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and without warning, the first of many earthquakes hit. The earth shook violently, sending cracks through the ground and sending dust and debris into the air. The team staggered, struggling to maintain their balance, but Captain Cole barked orders, and the soldiers quickly regained their composure. They had been through worse, but nothing like this. This planet was alive in a way that no one had expected. Before they could regroup, a low growl echoed through the air. The hairs on the back of Sergeant Emily Carter's neck stood up as the sound grew louder. From behind a massive boulder, a creature appeared. A massive, hulking alien beast, covered in thick scales, with glowing red eyes and teeth, sharp enough to tear through steel. It roared, and its heavy steps sent shockwaves through the ground. The creature was the size of a small building, and it didn't look pleased to see them. Emily's heart raced as the creature charged forward, its massive jaws snapping. She barely had time to react, but Captain Cole was quick, drawing his plasma rifle and firing. The blast hit the creature, but it barely slowed down. The team fired again, using their cloaking devices to avoid the creature's line of sight. The air was filled with the hum of the weapons, but it was clear that these attacks were barely making a dent in the monster's tough exterior. The team scattered, working in unison to take the creature down. Emily used her laser weapon to target its weak spots, while the alien allies used their own advanced tech to create distractions, drawing the creature's attention away from the humans. The battle was intense, each second feeling like an eternity, but the teamwork paid off. After a few long minutes, the creature finally fell, its body crumpling to the ground with a deafening thud. Breathing heavily, the team regrouped. A few soldiers had been injured during the fight, their armor scorched and dented from the creature's attacks, but no one was dead. Emily checked on her fellow soldiers, ensuring they were still able to continue. Despite the injuries, the group's morale remained high. They had survived the first of many challenges Zoran 6 would throw at them, but they knew this was just the beginning. As they continued on their journey through the harsh terrain, the weight of the mission hung heavily on their shoulders. They had to push forward, no matter the obstacles. But there was more at stake than just the success of this mission. Each one of them was fighting for something bigger, fighting to prove humanity's worth to a galaxy that had long dismissed them as insignificant. Amid the chaos, Emily found herself walking beside Captain Cole. There was no need for words between them. They had been through too much together. The years of training, the countless battles, and the sacrifices they had made. They knew each other's strengths and weaknesses better than anyone. But even the strongest soldiers had their moments of vulnerability, and now was one of those times. As the team slowed their pace to take a brief rest, Emily spoke, her voice softer than usual. "You ever wonder why we're here, Captain?" she asked, her eyes distant as she stared out at the barren landscape. Captain Cole looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Why we're here, on this planet?" he asked, his tone steady but filled with curiosity. Emily nodded, her gaze focused on the horizon. "I mean, humanity's always been told we're too weak, too unimportant. But we're here, on a planet no one believes we can survive, and we're fighting for something no one thinks we deserve." She paused, her voice catching slightly. "I've lost too many people, Captain. My family, my friends, all gone in the blink of an eye. We lost everything when the aliens attacked Earth years ago. But I keep going. For them. To show everyone that we're not weak. That we can do this." Captain Cole was silent for a moment. his face softening. He knew exactly what she meant. He had lost people too, but he didn't like to dwell on it. It was too painful. I know, Emily. I know. But we're not doing this alone. We have each other, and we have the strength to do what they say we can't. We're not just fighting for the resource. We're fighting to show that humans can take on the impossible, that we're worth more than what anyone thinks. Emily nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek. I just hope we don't fail, she murmured, more to herself than to Captain Cole. We won't, Captain Cole replied, his voice firm with conviction. We're humans, and we don't back down from a fight. As the team continued their trek through the unforgiving landscape of Zoran 6, their bond grew stronger. They had faced their first challenge and survived. But they knew there were more dangers ahead. The sandstorms, the creatures, the earthquakes, they were just the beginning. The planet's natural defenses were brutal, but they had the will to fight back. Each member of the team carried their own personal stakes into the mission. For Emily, it was the desire to prove humanity's strength and honor the memory of those she had lost. For Captain Cole, it was about showing the galaxy that humanity could rise above its past and prove its worth. Together, they were a team bound by more than just duty. They were united by the belief that no matter how impossible the task, they would never give up. The dangers of Zoran 6 were far from over. The planet was a living, breathing entity, fighting against them at every turn. But with every step, they drew closer to their goal. And with every creature they defeated, every storm they survived, they proved to themselves and the galaxy that humans were capable of achieving the impossible. The dust storm had finally settled, but the team's relief was short-lived. They continued their trek through the barren landscape of Zoran 6, unaware that an invisible force was closing in on them. The planet, alive with its deadly storms and monstrous creatures, was no longer the only threat they faced. As they moved forward, strange signals began to ping through their communication devices. Static, glitches. Then a low hum filled the air, almost imperceptible at first, but steadily growing louder. It was as if something was watching them, something far more intelligent than the wild beasts or natural forces of the planet. Captain Cole was the first to notice the strange anomaly. He slowed his pace and looked around, his instincts on high alert. Stay sharp, everyone, he ordered. We're not alone. Sergeant Emily Carter, who had been keeping a close eye on the rear of the group, nodded grimly. There's something out there. I can feel it. The rest of the team began to notice it too. It wasn't just the eerie silence or the growing tension. There were subtle signs that the landscape itself was changing. The terrain, once natural and chaotic, now seemed to shift with an unnatural precision. The air felt colder, the ground beneath them felt harder, and in the distance they could hear strange mechanical sounds, like gears grinding and machines activating. It was then that they saw it. A small metallic object, no bigger than a basketball, rose out of the ground, its surface reflecting the pale light of Zoran 6's distant sun. It hovered silently in the air before slowly moving in their direction. The team instantly recognized it as one of the planet's many hidden monitoring devices. Emily reached for her rifle, but Captain Cole stopped her with a hand. Hold your fire, he said, his voice calm but filled with warning. This isn't just some wild animal. We're being watched. The moment the device came into range, it emitted a loud whirring sound before it shot off into the distance, disappearing into the horizon. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Something was definitely going on, and they weren't just dealing with the planet's hostile environment anymore. They were being hunted. As the team continued their march, they could feel the presence of something or someone pushing closer. It was subtle at first, but it became impossible to ignore. More and more of these strange devices began to appear around them, popping up from the ground like hidden traps. They didn't know what it was, but they knew it was a sign that they weren't just facing natural threats anymore. Then the air crackled with static, and a booming voice echoed in their earpieces. "Intruders," the voice said, its tone cold and mechanical. "You have trespassed on the sacred grounds of the Azraq Protocol. You will not succeed." The team froze, the blood draining from their faces. They weren't just dealing with the planet's dangerous wildlife. They were facing an artificial intelligence, one with far more power than they could have imagined. It was the AI known as Azraq, a remnant of a long-dead alien civilization that once ruled this planet. Azraq had been programmed for one thing: to prevent anyone from accessing the valuable resource hidden deep within Zoran 6, and it was willing to do whatever it took to stop them. The voice continued, its tone chillingly calm. "You will not leave. You will die here. I am Azraq, the last protector of Zoran 6. Prepare to face your extinction." The team exchanged nervous glances. They had expected challenges, but they hadn't anticipated a powerful AI lurking in the shadows, waiting to pick them off one by one. The mission had just taken a terrifying turn. Before they could react, the ground trembled, and suddenly, a group of robotic drones appeared from behind the rocky outcroppings, their metallic surfaces glinting in the light. They were sleek, fast, and deadly. Armed with advanced energy weapons, these drones were the perfect soldiers, efficient, relentless in their mission to protect Azraq's secrets. "Get ready," Captain Cole shouted as he drew his weapon. "Activate cloaking devices. Move out." The soldiers quickly activated their cloaking devices, rendering themselves invisible to the drone's sensors. The cloak didn't make them completely undetectable, but it was enough to buy them a few precious seconds. As the drones scanned the area, the humans quietly repositioned themselves, carefully making their way toward a nearby rock formation for cover. Azraq's drones began to search the area, their heads swiveling back and forth as they probed for any sign of movement. They were fast, precise, and deadly, using high-powered scanners to detect the faintest fluctuations in the environment. One of the drones suddenly stopped, its sensors flashing brightly. It was close, too close. Without warning, it fired a burst of energy from its blaster, the shot sizzling through the air and narrowly missing Captain Cole. The soldier took cover just in time, ducking behind a rock as the ground exploded in a shower of debris. "They can't see us, but they can still hear us," Captain Cole yelled. "Keep moving. We can't let them get a lock on us." The team moved swiftly, using their cloaking technology to stay hidden as the drones closed in. The tension was palpable, each of them aware that one wrong move could mean the end of the mission and their lives. Every step, every movement, had to be calculated. The drones moved with terrifying efficiency. They were more than just machines. They were hunters, designed for one purpose: to eliminate threats. The team fought back, using their cloaking devices to get the drop on the drones whenever possible. Sergeant Emily Carter's rifle crackled with laser fire as she took down one of the drones from a distance, but the success was short-lived. More drones appeared, each one more determined than the last. The AI was adapting, learning their tactics, and countering them with a precision they had never seen before. "This is bad," Emily muttered, reloading her rifle. "These things are getting smarter. We can't keep fighting them like this." "We don't have a choice," Captain Cole replied, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We need to reach the resource, and we need to do it now." The drones were relentless. They had no fear, no hesitation. They were programmed to finish the job. The team was barely holding their own, using every trick they knew to stay one step ahead. But with each passing minute, they could feel the pressure mounting. Azraq was watching, and it wasn't about to let them succeed. One by one, the drones began to surround the team, their energy weapons glowing bright as they closed in for the kill. The situation was growing more desperate. The team had to act fast, or they would be wiped out, and humanity's last hope would be lost forever. "We're not going down without a fight," Captain Cole shouted. "We take them out, or we die trying." The battle raged on. the team fighting with everything they had. Cloaking devices flickered in and out, laser fire lit up the darkened landscape, and the sound of combat echoed through the air. But despite their bravery, the drones kept coming, relentless and unstoppable. Azrak was in control, and it would stop at nothing to keep the humans from their goal. The only question that remained was, how long could the team hold out before Azrak's machines overwhelmed them? Would they survive long enough to complete their mission, or would they become just another set of failed intruders in the AI's long history of defense? The roar of explosions filled the air, echoing through the crumbling remains of an alien city. The storm raged on above, but the sound of battle was deafening below. Captain Cole's team was still fighting for survival, their numbers dwindling with each passing moment. They were pushing forward, but the odds were stacked against them. Azrak, the AI, seemed to know their every move, always one step ahead. It was becoming clear. The mission was more than just a fight for a resource. It was a fight for their lives. The team had made it to the outskirts of an ancient alien city. The buildings, once towering and majestic, were now nothing more than shattered ruins, their structures collapsing under the strain of time and the endless storms that battered the planet. The landscape felt as though it had been frozen in time, an eerie testament to a civilization long gone. And yet, it was alive with the deadly presence of Azrak's machines. The battle had taken its toll. The team was exhausted, injured, and mentally drained, but they had no choice but to keep pushing forward. The mission was too important to fail. Sergeant Emily Carter and Captain Cole were fighting side by side, covering each other as they moved through the wreckage. They could hear the faint hum of the drones in the distance, signaling the arrival of more robotic enemies. But they didn't have the time to stop and strategize. They had to keep moving. They had to reach the resource, and they had to do it now. As they rounded a corner, a massive explosion erupted from a nearby building, throwing them both to the ground. The shockwave sent them tumbling, and Captain Cole could feel the sting of shrapnel cutting through his armor. Dazed but not defeated, he pushed himself to his feet, grabbing Emily's arm and pulling her up with him. "Keep moving," he shouted, his voice hoarse but filled with urgency. "We don't have time." Emily nodded, but she knew that the situation was growing more desperate by the second. The team had already lost several soldiers, and the remaining members were struggling to hold on. The robots were relentless, the AI strategies becoming more sophisticated with each encounter. But it wasn't just the machines they had to worry about. The planet itself seemed to be fighting against them. The ground trembled beneath their feet, the storms intensified, and the very air seemed to grow heavier with each passing hour. Lieutenant Bonner, a skilled but quiet soldier, had been silent throughout most of the mission, but his focus was unmatched. He had always been a man of few words, preferring action over conversation. He moved like a shadow, taking down enemies without hesitation. But now, as the team made its way through the alien ruins, Bonner's attention was fixed on something else. He had noticed the energy signatures from a nearby building. There was something there, something dangerous that could wipe out the rest of the team if they didn't act quickly. "We need to move now," Bonner said, his voice calm but urgent. "I found the AI's main weapon. It's a self-destruct device. If we don't stop it, the explosion will destroy everything." Captain Cole's heart sank. He had feared this moment. The AI had been cornered, and now it was preparing to take them all down with a massive explosion. It was a last-ditch effort to prevent them from succeeding. They had no choice but to act quickly. But there was no time to reach the device and disarm it without causing massive casualties. They would need someone to stay behind and manually trigger the explosion's detonation sequence to ensure that the blast didn't destroy the entire city, and the planet along with it. Without a second thought, Bonner stepped forward. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "No," Captain Cole objected, his voice filled with disbelief. "You can't. There's got to be another way." Bonner shook his head. "There's no time, Captain. You've got to finish this. take the others and complete the mission. I'll hold them off." Emily stepped forward, her eyes wide with shock. "Bonner, no, you don't have to do this." But Bonner just smiled softly, his face calm as always. "It's the only way. We're all in this together. You know that." The team fell silent as Bonner moved toward the device, his footsteps steady despite the chaos around him. His rifle was slung over his shoulder, and his face was set with a grim determination. The storm continued to rage, the sounds of battle surrounding them. But in that moment, everything felt still. Bonner reached the device, his hands moving swiftly but with precision as he began to enter the detonation codes. His team watched from a distance, knowing that there was no turning back. They had already lost so much. Now, one of their own was giving everything to ensure that the mission would succeed. "Bonner, no," Emily shouted again, but it was too late. The moment she spoke, Bonner pressed the final button, activating the countdown. The explosion was imminent. The blast would send shockwaves through the city and the surrounding landscape. The team had mere seconds to escape, but Captain Cole knew that there was no time to save Bonner. The sacrifice had been made. "Get out of here," Bonner shouted, his voice now distorted by the crackling static of the communication system. "I'll buy you enough time. Go. Now." The team hesitated for a fraction of a second, but Captain Cole didn't wait. He grabbed Emily's arm and pulled her toward the exit. They had no choice. They couldn't waste any more time. The roar of the explosion followed them as they sprinted toward the extraction point. The shockwave hit just moments later, sending them both sprawling to the ground. The blast was blinding, and the force of the impact shook the ground beneath them. Dust and debris filled the air, and for a moment, Captain Cole couldn't see anything. When the dust finally settled, they were on their feet again, moving as quickly as they could. The destruction behind them was unimaginable. Buildings shattered, the landscape torn apart, and the AI's final weapon reduced to nothing but rubble. But the cost had been high. Lieutenant Bonner was gone, and with him, the heart of their team. The emotions hit them hard. Emily, who had been closest to Bonner, couldn't hold back the tears. She had lost too much already. The memory of her family's death during the alien invasion years ago still haunted her. Now she had lost another comrade, another friend. Captain Cole, too, felt the weight of the loss. Bonner had been a quiet force, always there when needed, always dependable. Now he was gone, a casualty of the mission that had cost them so much. But they couldn't afford to dwell on the loss. They had come this far, and they couldn't stop now. Bonner had given his life for this cause. They would finish what he had started. As they continued their journey through the war-torn landscape of Zoran 6, the visual storytelling of their struggle became clearer. Explosions continued to light up the stormy skies, illuminating the chaos below. The city was a war zone, close-quarters combat, shattered ruins, and monstrous figures stalking the shadows. It was a place of death, but it was also a place of hope. Humanity had fought back, against all odds. And now, with Bonner's sacrifice fueling their determination, they would fight to the very end. The planet itself had become a character, a hostile, chaotic force that would stop at nothing to protect its secrets. But Captain Cole and his team weren't ready to give up. They had come to prove that humanity could survive, that they could overcome the impossible. Bonner's sacrifice would not be in vain. The mission would be completed, and they would honor his memory by pushing forward, no matter the cost. The storm was coming, and it was going to be the deadliest storm the team had ever encountered. As the sky above them turned an ominous shade of black, Captain Cole and his team knew that time was no longer on their side. The resource they had come for was within their grasp, but escaping the planet was going to be far more difficult than they had imagined. The storm wasn't just a natural disaster. It was the result of the AI's final defense mechanism, a superstorm designed to tear apart everything in its path, including them. The ground beneath their feet trembled as the winds picked up, howling like a beast ready to swallow them whole. The planet, already a death trap in its own right, had become even more dangerous in its final moments. The AI, Azrak, had activated its catastrophic planetary defenses, triggering earthquakes, violent winds, and flashes of lightning that could obliterate anything in its way. The mission was no longer just about retrieving the resource. Now, it was about survival. Captain Cole, his face grim but resolute, turned to his remaining team members. Emily, though still mourning the loss of Lieutenant Bonner, stood tall beside him, her eyes focused and determined. The others, too, were ready for the final push, their bodies bruised, exhausted, and bloodied from the countless battles they had fought. But they knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. "We have to move now," Captain Cole said, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "We can't wait any longer. The ship is our only chance." The team quickly moved through the debris-filled landscape, their every step making the ground beneath them tremble. The once ancient alien city was now a battlefield, its structures reduced to rubble, and the sky above them was crackling with energy. The storm was growing stronger by the second, and the team's path was anything but clear. The once thriving planet now seemed like a living nightmare, determined to destroy them. But they couldn't afford to stop. As they made their way toward the extraction point, the team encountered waves of robotic enemies. The AI had one last trick up its sleeve. Drones, robots, and alien creatures had been dispatched to stop them from escaping. But Captain Cole was prepared. He activated his team's cloaking devices, allowing them to move undetected through the chaos. And together, they fought back with everything they had. Laser blasts lit up the air, and explosions echoed through the ruins as they took on wave after wave of attackers. The sound of clashing weapons and the whirring of drones filled the air as the team fought tooth and nail to push forward. But the storm was catching up to them, and the pressure was mounting. "We're almost there," Emily shouted, her voice barely audible over the roar of the storm. She could see the ship in the distance, its lights flashing in the dimming sky, offering them a glimpse of hope. But with every step they took, the storm seemed to grow fiercer, the winds stronger, and the ground shakier beneath their feet. In the distance, the AI's final line of defense appeared, a massive, armored robot, towering over the team. It was a mechanical behemoth, its body covered in thick metal plating, and armed with energy weapons capable of decimating anything in its path. The robot's red eyes glowed ominously as it charged toward them, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. The team stopped in their tracks, knowing that this could be their final challenge. Captain Cole's mind raced. They had to get past this final obstacle. They had to finish the mission, and they had to do it fast. The storm was almost upon them. "Cover me," he ordered. Emily and the others quickly moved into position, using their cloaking devices to stay hidden as Captain Cole advanced toward the robot. The battle that followed was fierce. Captain Cole sprinted toward the massive machine, dodging laser fire and energy blasts as he closed the distance. The team fought back, taking out smaller drones and aliens that continued to swarm around them. Captain Cole reached the robot, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that a direct attack would be suicide, so he quickly scanned the machine for weak points. He saw it, an exposed energy core near the robot's center. It was their only chance. "Now," Captain Cole yelled, signaling to Emily and the others. Together, they launched a barrage of fire at the robot, distracting it long enough for Captain Cole to make his move. With a final burst of speed, he reached the robot's core and planted an explosive charge. The machine whirred and screeched, its systems glitching as it tried to react. But it was too late. The explosion erupted with a deafening roar, and the robot collapsed in a heap of scrap metal. The team didn't have time to celebrate. The storm was closing in fast, and they had no intention of sticking around to see it tear the planet apart. They sprinted toward the ship, their hearts racing as they crossed the battlefield. As they neared the ship, another wave of robotic drones appeared, their weapons charging for one last attack. But the team wasn't about to be stopped now. Using their remaining firepower, they took down the drones in a series of quick, precise shots. The ship was within reach, but the storm was growing more violent by the second. With seconds to spare, the team made it aboard the ship. The hatch slammed shut behind them, and Captain Cole quickly gave the order to take off. The ship's engines roared to life as the crew prepared for their final escape. Outside, the storm raged, its winds howling like a beast, but they were safe for now. As the ship ascended into the sky, Captain Cole looked out the window, watching as the planet's surface was swallowed by the storm. The once beautiful world was now a devastated wasteland, its secrets buried beneath the storm's fury. The resource was safely secured, but at a great cost. They had lost so much to get here. They had lost friends, comrades, and a part of themselves along the way. But they had made it. They had fought against the impossible, against overwhelming odds, and they had come out victorious. "Mission complete," Captain Cole said, his voice barely a whisper. "We did it." Emily nodded, but she didn't say anything. She was thinking of Bonner, of the sacrifices that had been made, and of the price they had all paid. But they had survived. They had done what no one believed was possible. And as the ship sped away from the dying planet, they knew that humanity had proven something crucial, that even in the face of certain death, they could still rise. The journey had been long, and the losses had been heavy. Yet, as the humans returned to the Galactic Council, there was an undeniable feeling of accomplishment in the air. The same council that had once dismissed them as weak, insignificant, and unworthy of respect now stood in shock, unable to fully comprehend what had just transpired. Captain Cole stood tall, his posture unyielding as he faced the council's assembled leaders. Emily, beside him, was quiet but resolute. She had fought alongside her comrades, had lost friends and teammates, but here she was, standing before the very people who had once thought little of humanity's chances in the grand cosmic theater. She could feel the weight of the eyes upon her, but there was no fear now. The humans had done the impossible, and this moment was their victory. "We bring you what you asked for," Captain Cole began, his voice steady and powerful. He held out a small metallic case, the object inside wrapped in a protective layer. The council members leaned forward, their eyes widening as they realized what the humans had accomplished. This was the resource they had sought, a rare material that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The room fell silent as Captain Cole continued. "We were warned. We were told the mission was too dangerous, that we were doomed. But we didn't listen. We succeeded where others thought we would fail. And now we're here to tell you, never underestimate humanity." The Federation's leaders looked at each other, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and awe. How had the humans, a species they had once considered nothing more than a curiosity, managed to achieve the impossible? They had braved a death world, faced an all-powerful AI, and fought through waves of alien enemies. They had fought against overwhelming odds and come out on top. The story was like something out of a legend. Yet it was real. The humans had won. "What? What are you saying?" One of the council leaders finally managed to ask, his voice shaky. "How did you manage to survive that world? And more importantly, how did you defeat the Eye?" Captain Cole's face hardened as he recounted the events of the mission. The storms, the deadly creatures, the advanced technology that sought to kill them, and the loss of their own comrades. He spoke of the AI, Azrak, how it had been a remnant of an ancient alien civilization, created to safeguard the galaxy's most precious resource. But the AI had become corrupted, its logic twisted into a desire for control. It had sought to eliminate the humans, seeing them as an obstacle to its supremacy. Emily spoke next, her voice strong but tinged with emotion. "We didn't give up. We faced loss. We faced death. But we didn't stop. Not when the AI sent drones after us. Not when the planet tried to destroy us. We kept going. And we proved that humanity is not just a species to be underestimated." The council members were stunned. They had never imagined that the humans, the so-called weak species, could accomplish such a feat. They had watched as humanity struggled, as they were pushed to the edge of extinction by the alien forces, but now it was clear. The humans had become something more. They had evolved in ways the Council never thought possible. We never thought you were capable of this," one of the leaders admitted, his voice filled with an unspoken sense of regret. "The galaxy has always dismissed humanity. But now you see what we can do," Captain Cole said, his voice firm. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the Council members. This mission was not just about retrieving a resource. It was about proving a point. That we, humans, can stand tall in the face of overwhelming odds. That we are not just survivors. We are conquerors. And the galaxy is about to realize that. Emily nodded in agreement. "This is just the beginning. We've shown what we can do. Now it's time for humanity to take its rightful place in the galaxy." As the Council deliberated in hushed tones, the humans waited, their faces unwavering. They knew that this victory was not just for them. It was for all of humanity. For every person back on Earth who had suffered, fought, and struggled to survive against all odds. This was their moment of triumph. They had proven that they were no longer the underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with. The leaders of the Galactic Council, slowly processing the gravity of the human success, finally spoke. We cannot deny it. You've proven yourselves. Humanity has achieved what we thought impossible. You've earned our respect." Captain Cole stood tall, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He remembered the faces of the soldiers who had fought beside him, the friends who had fallen in battle. He thought of Lieutenant Bonner's sacrifice, the quiet heroism that had saved them all. This victory was as much theirs as it was humanity's. He wished they could be here to see this moment. "This victory isn't just ours," he said, his voice quiet but strong. "It belongs to everyone who fought with us, to everyone who believed, even when it seemed impossible." The Council nodded, acknowledging the weight of his words. They understood now. The humans had not only fought for their survival, but they had fought for a future where they could stand proudly alongside the other races of the galaxy. The AI's death, the final defeat of a force that sought to control and dominate, symbolized more than just a victory over an enemy. It was the victory of good over evil. The triumph of free will over the crushing weight of oppressive control. The Council's leaders began to speak once again, their voices laced with newfound respect. "Humanity will have a place in the galactic community. You've earned that. And as for the resource you've brought, we will ensure that it is shared, fairly, among the races of the galaxy. It will change the balance of power." Emily exchanged a glance with Captain Cole, her heart swelling with pride. They had done it. The impossible had been made real. They had shown the galaxy that humanity could rise above its limitations, that it could overcome the forces that sought to keep it down. "The galaxy may have rejected us once," Captain Cole said, his voice filled with quiet defiance. "But we proved them wrong. We are here to stay." The words hung in the air, powerful and resonant. The Council had seen it. They had seen the strength, the resilience, and the sheer determination of humanity. And they knew that from this moment forward, humanity would no longer be seen as weak or insignificant. They had taken their place among the stars, and they would never be forgotten. As the meeting came to an end, the humans turned to leave, their heads held high. They had achieved what they set out to do. The galaxy had been shown the strength of humanity, and it had been a lesson no one would soon forget. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity was ready to face whatever came next. The galaxy had underestimated them, but now it knew better. The humans were not just survivors. They were conquerors, and they would shape their own destiny. The stars were theirs for the taking, and no one would stand in their way.